And Feinstein's death led to tributes across Washington as lawmakers try to avoid that shutdown. A lot to discuss. Joining us now is WGN Political Report host Paul Lisnek. Paul, thanks for being here.
Sure, yeah, woke up to that sad news today.
Yeah, she was described as a trailblazer a lot today. Talk to me about your memories of her as well as the process. Gavin Newsom said he will appoint a replacement, likely a black woman. Take us through that process.
Well, and of course, and he's looking at his own future, so he has made that promise. There is some talk that maybe he won't do that. He may do something else. Her death surprised people. She was actually at a lunch yesterday with Jane Harman.
Right. Voted yesterday.
Yeah, and voted yesterday. So obviously this was a bit of a surprise. I think the thing people need to remember about her, because she's a California Democrat, there's a lot of people who probably in their mind think, oh, she's just one of those really progressive liberal types. She was not that. She was a centrist. And for example, for a long time, she supported the death penalty. She shifted in her views on that over time, but she was critical to the assault weapons ban. She was critical to gay marriage and gay rights. So she was progressive on issues, but overall, as the longest serving female senator and the longest serving senator from California, she indeed was a moderate who knew how to work with the other side and often did.
What bothered me is that in her later years, people were questioning whether she was okay to be a part of the Senate still. And,
look, it looked like there were some appearances of possible dementia there, and the issues in voting, and there were a lot of things. And perhaps she waited a bit too long to step down, but we can understand how power is within us.
Right.
We're hearing that about a few other politicians going on right now. The bottom line is, I think history will keep her in a good light, and I think those last days, Micah, that bother us today will fade away in time.
Let's talk about the government shutdown.
Sure.
That's all that we've been talking about all week. People don't realize how it's going to affect every single person in this country.
Well, because air traffic controllers, anybody who's a federal employee, TSA, you want to go to the parks, a national park, those are going to close and be shut down. The military, now,
although TSA and air traffic controls have to work, they won't be paid.
Well, and what I was going to say is they have to determine what's essential and what's not, and essential workers keep working. However, there's some reports that some of the TSA and some of them, they may just not show up to work. You can't keep somebody from calling in sick who says, I'm not getting paid. So I think we can expect slowdowns. We know in the last time this happened, it was in 2018. There was like a $4 billion loss to the economy that was never recovered. So this has lots of ramifications. Appears to be a lot between a battle between Matt Gaetz and Kevin McCarthy, and we'll see how that all plays out. McCarthy's trying to put this on Biden and calling it a Democratic shutdown, but it's not. The Democrats are on board here. Most Republicans, the Senate is on board. It truly is about these few people that are keeping Kevin McCarthy from getting his numbers. But it's a serious shutdown if it happens.
Do you think it will happen?
I do think we're going to shut down.
Really?
Yeah, I mean, I'm always the first to be optimistic and say, give it to the 11th hour. Here's the problem. Kevin McCarthy said this evening, well, if the Senate sent us a bill, but they pulled out the Ukraine money, I can get that through. They're not pulling out the Ukraine money. And again, except for these people, I know there's people who don't support the war in Ukraine, but with regard to the legislature, there's a very few people who don't support that. There's no way that money's coming out. So there's nowhere to go except shut down. And remember, Donald Trump, who many of those people follow very closely as their leader, they don't follow McCarthy as their leader, Donald Trump is their leader. He has essentially told them and has told them, unless you get everything you're demanding, shut it down. And that's what they plan to do.
Yesterday, we watched the Republican impeachment inquiry of President Biden. It didn't seem to go virtually anywhere. What is going to be the next step in this process?
So, Ray, the way those things usually work is that you bring in fact witnesses, and the fact witnesses tell you, here's what we found, and here's the documents, and here's this and that. And then you bring in those experts, those law professors who come in at the end and tell you what it means and why this is impeachable. That's not what happened yesterday. What happened yesterday was they started at the end. They brought in the law professor, Jonathan Turley, who, if people don't know him, watch Fox. You'll see it. Well, don't watch Fox. I mean, do what you want. But you'll see him on that network a lot. Very conservative professor, very pro-Trump in a lot of what he says. And he said in his testimony before the committee, I don't see anything here that is impeachment. You'd have to find some evidence. Every expert they brought in yesterday, no fact witnesses, all came to the same conclusion. And that's why right now it appears the impeachment proceedings, it's raising a lot of questions. I think, as Mike Quigley said, there's not only no fire here, we don't even see the smoke.
But they're still going to subpoena Hunter Biden's bank records.
Well, actually, the committee, Micah, you asked me about what's essential. Jim Jordan and James Comer have said their impeachment committee is essential. And even though the government is shut down, they will continue their work. They've determined themselves to be essential.
Speaking of Jim Jordan, he was in town this week. House Committee field hearing at the FOP on Chicago violence. Was it grandstanding? Was it a political stunt? Cook County Cook County Prosecutor Kim Foxx says it was grandstanding.
So it looked like a grandstanding event because here these folks are always going after Chicago and what goes on here and all that, and they show up to have the hearing. There's an argument to be made that we do have a crime problem here, and there are issues, and they are on an investigating committee. If he goes to many cities around the country and does this kind of thing, then I think there's an argument to be made. But beyond that, what his plan was for in Chicago, what will come out of it? Look, if we get a report, we get some suggestions, maybe that will be a decent thing. But at this moment, Kim Foxx may be holding kind of the majority view, which is, why'd you do this for? It just looked like grandstanding. Maybe in a few months, we'll see if they do something with it.
That's been under a national spotlight, as has been the migrant crisis here in Chicago. Mayor Brandon Johnson's own allies seem to have put the spotlight of criticism on him. City Council also did that on the governor. Where do you think this all will go?
So right now, there's a lot of tension building, and one of the real issues, it's interesting to me, because you have Brandon Johnson saying we've got to have these sort of tent cities and build these tents all around in areas, and Governor Pritzker has actually said, no, we need to be using vacant buildings, and they're at odds over that. So, the state helps to fund the city. If they don't come together, it's hard to know which direction it goes. At some point, maybe Mayor Johnson says we're using the buildings, there's no more to use, but you have community members, city council, very contentious this week with people, Jeanette Taylor, alderwoman, basically making this point. You're making me choose between people. I don't want to do this. We shouldn't be doing this. So this problem, I think, is going to get more complicated before there is a solution. But right now, you got to have the mayor and the governor work together to come to some kind of terms. And right now, they're a bit at odds.
What's on your show this week?
Hey, we've got some really interesting stuff. First of all, Mike Quigley is he's promised he's going to join us no matter what happens on the floor. He will be on there with me, telling us, giving us an update on the shutdown. A woman named Karina Ayala Bermejo, who's the CEO and president of Latino Advocacy Group, is going to talk about this migrant problem we are just talking about. And Paul Kendrick, who's a political pollster, and others, is going to come in and give us a little debate review, but really with a look forward in terms of what does this mean. And by the way, is it possible that if there is a Trump versus Biden, they won't even debate against each other? He'll comment.
Won't?
Yeah, well, I'm going to ask him about
According
that. No, there's been articles suggesting that they won't do that. Yeah. And then finally, next Thursday, I do the midday and do some, on Friday, on the midday show, I'll be interviewing Sean O'Brien. He's a former White House speechwriter. He's releasing a kid's book called The White House Clubhouse, where the female president's kids get lost in the stateroom and end up in Teddy Roosevelt's day.
All right, thank you.
And on a train, and there's
and fun
animals
stuff.
and fun stuff. It's kids.
All right, you can catch your show at 9 a.m. Sunday morning, right?
Exactly.
All right,
All right,
thank you,
well,
sir.
Bright and early. Thank you.
All right.